In this video, it's Australia Day and I'm here in Parramatta, and there's a classic car show as part of many different celebrations here, so I thought we'll start by having a mooch around. Now obviously I'm very excited to see a 2CV, but look what we've got here. Ford Falcon AU Estate, and these are great because if you thought the Fairmont I had in New Zealand was low tech with its beam rear axle, these still have leaf springs at the back. Proper simple technology for load lugging. But yes, we've got a lovely 2CV Charleston here, 1980s one, CX, that's looking very nice. 2 CXs indeed. Another late 2CV. Oh, look at this GS Gendarmerie. I'm definitely thinking I need to acquire a GS or a GSA this year. It is the 50th anniversary of the GS, so that's quite an achievement. Got a big old traction at the back, Morris J van, back from the days where you really did sit next to the engine and the passenger didn't exactly get much luxury. That one dates from 1955, Morris J van, probably assembled locally I should imagine. Morris Minor with a spoiler because you need to contain all that fierce power. Rolls-Royce Camargue, definitely one of the more curious cars Rolls-Royce ever built. Styled by Pininfarina, has a pantograph wiper, hasn't got the headlamp brushes, but yeah, quite extraordinary motor vehicle. We've got something that I suspect was a Datsun 240Z and is now trying to look like a Ferrari. We have a Vanden Pla, it's like a 3 litre. So that's very nice, low light Morris Minor there. But yeah, there's about 300 cars here, so maybe I should get my foot down and have a proper mooch around and try and find the more interesting cars. There's a fine display of Armstrong Sidleys here. We've got 2 Sapphires here, and these are Sapphires. That's a 246 I think, or 236. In fact I think they both are, which have the 2.3 litre 6-cylinder engine. Armstrong Sidley's answer to the Mark 1 Jaguar. Sadly doesn't quite have the grace, and I apologise for the strong sunlight, but this is Australia. Yeah, not all that happy in the styling stakes, haven't got the grace of the larger Sapphires, but yeah, let's go and have a mooch. Oh yes, it's a Morris Major Elite. This is a curious car. They're based on the Riley 1.5, but I think they've got a much bigger engine in them. There we go, Morris Major. That is a fascinating find. And behind here, people were asking about these. This is a Suzuki Mighty Boy pickup. I think the only K-sized pickup, possibly excluding the Daihatsu Midget. So that's a fine find. Loving the Moggy Traveller trailer, that's quite funky. And we've got a Lloyd Alexander Estate here. That's interesting. Wow, unexpected. We have a Goggomobil based van that I've never seen the likes of before, called a Carryall. That's an amazing little thing. I love how it's colour coordinated with a little Lloyd next to it. There we go, tiny little van. It's got a roller shutter door, rear engine. This has a whiff of locally produced about it, I must say. Some interesting steering linkages going on down there. Goggomobil Carryall. Ah, so yeah, this was an Australian designed and built vehicle, as is this, a Goggomobil Dart. Someone did mention these to me earlier. So again, Goggomobil chassis, little rear engined twin cylinder I think, but an Australian designed body for a true little baby sports car. That's amazing. So yeah, that's some unexpected finds right there. We're just taking the beauty of the traction Avant and the beauty of the dashboard especially. Lovely. Presumably slow built if it's right hand drive. The gear lever drooping out of the dashboard. Lovely. Although it's got the chevrons on the outside of the grille, so maybe it's not a slouch. But this is just one corner of the show. I'm going to get moving and find something else. Oh yes, Cadillac Seville. Oh, right-hand drive as well. And Elegante. But elegant isn't really the word to describe that. This is a 1980s car. And it's hard to believe when you look at the back of it like that. We've got a nice row of Jaguars variously here. Beautiful Mark 1. That's very nice. Probably a 3.4 I'd say, as it's got the exposed rear wheels. That's a 420 there. The last of the Mark II spin-off Jaguars. So that's actually a Mark II body was the starting point, but it's got the independent rear suspension used in the S-Type, but then with a front end which looks more like the later XJ. Because at one stage Jaguar had 4 saloons all competing with each other. Don't fully understand that. So here's a Mark 1 next to a Mark II. Very good. Oh, we'll just have a... I'll let the Ford fans take in this lineup. Look at this Prefect Ute. Magnificent. But I'm afraid the Mazdas have caught my eye, or Japanese stuff generally. We've got a Toyota Corolla here, 5-door. We didn't get those as a 5-door. Look at this fantastic little Mazda pickup. That's amazing. Oh, I'm liking that. Next to a Toyota Corona Ute. They really do like a Ute here, don't they? That's very attractive. Toyota Corona Saloon, Corolla Wagon, Corolla Van. Oh, that's marvellous. And Toyota Celica of the RA40 liftback type. No pantograph wiper, but you did get one on the Supra at a 6-cylinder. Oh, Toyota Car Club. A Kingswood. Now, I doubt we're going to see one today, but there's an interesting story about these Kingwoods, is that they did a Mazda Pathfinder, which was one of these, but with a rotary Mazda engine. One of the most peculiar vehicles you will ever see, but sadly that is not one. Oh, the Toyota owners have got the shade at least. Got a road test coming on a GTI version of one of those. And that's like a Crown Super Saloon, is it? Oh no, it's Royal Saloon. Ooh, extra poshness. Right, let's find out how little I've learnt about Holdens. This is an FJ. I think the FJ is where the Holden story begins. Holden was a coach builder bought by GM and then developed their own cars. This is a slightly later one, hence the slightly later styling. I believe these are an EJ. They're quite attractive. Can see a definite link in those to the Vauxhall Victor. And we'll just come roaring through this gap backwards, just to make you feel all queasy, because this FC looks blooming marvellous. Oh, look at those wheel trims. So that's a later Holden based around the Vauxhall Senator body shell. Tiranas here. Yeah, that's not a Holden. Huge Cadillac, absolutely dwarfing everything near it. So yeah, wow. Definitely some variety going on today. And now we're into Sunbeam territory. We've got a Sunbeam Talbot 90 here. They are very, very pretty. Oh, hello. It's a Holden Gemini. I've only seen these in scrapyards, so it's nice to see one that isn't completely destroyed. Copyright reasons, we shall stay away from that interior. Wow. Holden Gemini, so an Isuzu with a Holden badge is basically what that is. Here's the rear end of the Sunbeam Talbot 90. And we've got fins compared on the different Alpines here. So the earlier Alpines had these massive tail fins, which they later truncated. Imp, who doesn't love an Imp? I certainly do. Ooh, an original Alpine. So this is the roadster version of the Sunbeam Talbot 90 we saw, Lancia Aprilia. These are remarkable cars. I have had the pleasure of driving one. Rack and pinion steering, narrow angle V4 engine, non-synchromesh gearbox, because Lancia reckoned you had to drive one of these cars, you had to know how to drive a car. But monocoque construction, front wheel drive, pretty revolutionary. A little Beta Monte Carlo next to it. And this is an Appia. The Appia, sorry about the music noise, replaced the Aprilia. It's got the same pillarless doors going on. Very impressive. Oh, lovely big old Ford GT Falcon. The owner doesn't seem to know if it's an XA or XB. They seem to have signed it as both. Rover P5 Coupe. Spotter Coupe by the little quarter lights and the lower roof line. Fiat 850. These are truly marvellous cars. And yeah, I got a bit confused in a recent video about a Yugo. The smaller Yugo 45 used a derivative of this engine, but the 55 I drove had an entirely different engine. Here's a Borgward Isabella. Oddly, I had a brief drive in one of those at the Microcar Rally last year, but sadly I was unable to do video on it. There's another Ford Falcon Coupe. Yeah, look at that. That is big and sleek and bold and all those things that aren't me. Oh wow. AMC Rambler, Volkswagen Beetle, later Ford Falcon, one of the last of the line. Batwing BMW 3-litre SL. These were homologation spoilers for the touring car racing, and you bought the car from the dealer and it came with that kit. They didn't come looking like this, but all the bits were part of the kit, so they could homologate them for racing. Little Wolseley 1500 here next to a Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. But oh, I like this. I like these motors as well, but I like the Honda Civic even more. And Fiat 500s variously. This is the last of the original Topolino style 1950s facelift, much chunkier, next to a little Nuevo Datsun 510 Bluebird there, 1600cc in that one. Jaguar XK 140, looking at the grille, and the fact it's slightly larger in the rear. Gosh, that is a big old Buick, an Invicta apparently. Another huge Cadillac, like one I drove earlier. Another fancy Buick. Oh, there's a lot to see at this show. Oh wow, pre-war Fiat, 1924. Oh, that's a lovely vehicle. Wonderful. Looks like a centre throttle as well, so that'll be interesting to drive. Here's the rear of that Falcon. Oh, much potency. Lincoln Continental here, complete with the pop-up flaps on the headlamps, and an enormous engine that's probably about 7 litres and produces 200 horsepower. Also plenty of anti-smog kit about the place. Oh gosh, it's hot. Sorry, I promised myself I wouldn't say gosh it's hot today, but unfortunately it is hot. It's about 30 degrees and it's not even 10 o'clock in the morning yet, I don't think. But yeah, lovely old Buicks. Oh, look at this. Articulated truck. Super. Should probably take in this lovely Holden pickup. Of course, an Australian company would have its own Utes. That's a joyous find. It's a Steyr-Pooch Haflinger. All the more interesting because the engine here at the back looks very familiar to me, because that is the same engine that powers my Invacar. So although that's a 643cc version and mine has only 493 cc and yeah, rather fewer horsepower. There are some military jeeps about the place, but I thought I'd go walking over here because we've got fire engines, and fire engines are always good fun, I find. Not sure what that one is there. Mack. That's a big old Mack. And of course you got to have a Dennis. I don't remember them being quite so big when I was a child. Apparently we got Rolls-Royce power, we got wipers at the top, just like the bin lorries in Birmingham when I was growing up. Big old Leyland over there, 1938 Lioness. And take a look at this beautiful Ford ambulance. That looks like it's been beautifully kept in original condition. .260 V8 engine. So that's from the earliest line of Ford Falcons, when they still looked a fair bit like the American one. It was from this point that the Australian Ford Falcons completely went off on their own. Alright, a bit of a walk to the other side of the field where we find the Range Rover Club. Obviously I have to park them further away because of all the oil leaks. Discovery facelift here, Range Rover Classics. Oh no, there's a fire, there's an emergency. Yeah, I got video coming up on Range Rover Classics. This one, I can tell by the windscreen, is a late soft dash Range Rover. It's an LSE, it's got the slightly longer wheelbase because they effectively used the chassis to prove all the mechanicals for the P38 Range Rover, and it allowed them to stitch an extra 8 inches into the wheelbase, which they did here. But this is the soft dash, very similar to the dashboard out of the facelift Discovery, to be honest, but a vast improvement on the earlier types, which were rather piecemeal, to be honest. So these came in just for the final year in production in '94, I believe, the old soft dash. Here's some earlier Range Rovers, 1989 here, 1976 two-door. This is back when the Range Rover was still a somewhat basic vehicle with vinyl seats and rubber mats so you could hose down the interior. One detail I love, you'll notice a two-door with this huge external door handle. They remained in production for the French market, and I think possibly the Spanish, right up until towards the end of production, which is nice. I've just walked all the way over here because this poor Holden van has been deemed not good enough for the show, even though it's displaying some impressive pantograph wiper action going on there. We can see the marks in it, so it's obviously a working vehicle. It has towed something else here today, but that's really nice. Old Holden panel van, I'm liking that. And I got told off earlier for in an earlier video for ignoring the Ford Territory. If you look, the biggest giveaway is probably around the headlamps and the wipers, but apparently it's based on the Falcon platform, as is this much later Ford Falcon. So the BABF Falcon, I think this was developed from, but they have different engines. You could get these with the V6 Peugeot Ford engine that was also used in stuff like Jaguar S types and XJs, Land Rovers, etc. I've just spotted a Holden estate I need to go and have a look at down here. It's typical I come to a classic car show and have more fun wandering around the main car park or where all the exhibitor vehicles hide. But I'm just going to take in the beauty of this Holden wagon here. Again, this is of the era that was very much based on the Carlton and Senator, but I would imagine probably slightly wider. It's usually the way of these things. V6 with 3.8 injection. Just glossing over the fact that that engine is actually an old Buick engine with overhead valves, but still nice to see. Some older vehicles for you. A Delage here, complete with the gear lever and handbrake on the outside. And there's also a 1908 Renault here. It's a twin cylinder engine, and the radiator is at the back, as was Renault tradition for quite a long time. Even when most manufacturers moved to a front radiator, Renault bizarrely kept theirs at the back out of the airflow. You see the exposed valve gear, but a straight 2 engine, that's not going to be smooth. A friend of mine has a Little Britain ON, I believe, and that has a straight 2 engine, and it is possibly the roughest sounding engine I've ever heard in my life, and a terrifying vehicle to drive as well. But I think that might be us done, which is good because I am really starting to melt. It is a warm old day, so let's go and find something to finish on. Now here's a beauty, Vauxhall Velox, but this is a a Vagabond convertible. These were actually built here in Australia. It's based on the Velox, which is the 6-cylinder version, Wyvern being the 4-pot and the Cresta being the ultimately posh one. And yeah, it looks surprisingly shapely. Same rear lights as the saloon, but yeah, what a pretty looking car. I like how the windscreen has a bit of a chopped look to it, so it looks a bit like a hot rod. It's definitely giving off that vibe. I like that very much. Of course, Vauxhall of Luton, which they still are just about clinging on there, building vans. But yeah, a lovely car. I've come back to have another look at this remarkable Goggomobil Carryall. Just reading some more of the information down here. And the reason the steering looks so odd is because it goes down to that what looks like a plank of wood, and then there's a chain drive down to the steering rack, because of course the front axle is here. So it's based on the saloon chassis, but with this remarkable glass fibre body on top. I find that utterly astonishing. So without doubt, I think I'm going to declare the Goggomobil Carryall my vehicle of the show. So I have to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this little walk around, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Farewell.